Okay, so hi, Aspara community. I am Charlotte, the founder of Aspara, and I am so excited to welcome you to today's powerful conversation. This discussion is all about reclaiming hormonal health, redefining productivity through cycle awareness, and building a future where ambitious women prioritize their bodies as much as their goals. So it's really focusing on how we can understand ourselves and our bodies as we continue to go on our path of success. So we'll be exploring how technology and self-awareness and transforming the way we manage PMS, PMDD, PCOS, and more through the lens of body literacy and personalized care and community support. I'll also be sharing a little bit about my personal journey and how I've been able to use applications to better support me on my journey to understand my body as well. And then I'm really excited to welcome you to our very special guest, Anya Grover, the founder of Healcycle and TEDx keynote speaker, a true thought leader and future of women's health. I was very lucky to meet Anya at the recent university event that we spoke at. So I'm very excited to welcome her today on today's guest room. Hi, Anya, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. And this is an amazing platform that I think you're building and so necessary for all the women who are trying to like do well in their careers, but also balance other commitments and our personal well-being.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's definitely something that's really close to heart. And for everyone listening, super appreciative of you being part of this community. And it's talks like this that really help us optimize our own journey and be able to understand ourselves better and to be successful on that path. So Anya, I'm beyond excited to learn more about Heal Cycle. It's just a very current app that is transformative in many ways. And I know we're going to kind of peel back the layers and understand it a little bit more. So I guess getting started, what really inspired you to build Heal Cycle, the background, the history behind it?
Or so I think the background actually starts with my interest or work in menstrual health equity and activism, which started in my teens. So I grew up in Delhi in India, and especially here, but I think in every country there are still a lot of taboos and there is a lot of stigma surrounding even the topic or conversation around periods. So I felt like that wasn't changing even with my generation, like the Gen Z, that were not really being educated about periods. And my friends and I, launched a social initiative uh, called Pravaha Kriti, where Pravaha means flow and Kriti means a beautiful creation in Sanskrit. And so our goal was to educate everyone and spread the message essentially that this flow is like totally normal, like a completely normal biological process, and to see it as a beautiful, positive thing. And one thing led to the other. So this is actually what led to me being invited to give a TED talk at their New York headquarters. So it was at TED Weekend, which is their youth conference, and I was so honored to be one of the around 14 speakers globally that were there. And I wanted to continue this journey. So I was studying computer science and cognitive science at Princeton. And alongside that, I also was an ambassador and then later on a public health track advisory position for an organization called the PAD Project. This is where I sort of got a broader lens on reproductive health and how it intersects with women's mental health and the awareness about PMDD, menopause, and all the challenges that come with these conditions. And even being in this field, I felt like, wow, this was like, I was learning so much that I had no idea
Mm.
about. And it can get very severe if left, untreated, undiagnosed, and there are a lot of misconceptions and misdiagnoses that is prevalent. And so that was where the spark for Healcycle really took root, that I wanted to combine my passion for women's health and then also my course, like my skills and my background in tech, and make a difference here.
That's phenomenal. What a journey. I feel like you kind of really grew this from that deeper passion from the experience that you had and that level of interest and seeing and learning on that journey, which really brings together the best of what you're building because of your own experience and also having learned
Mhm.
deeply about it as well. So when you were creating Heal Cycle, obviously we have so many different options out there when it comes to applications to help us with um, our health regime as well. Kind of what were the gaps that you specifically felt like you wanted to fulfill with Heal Cycle and what you feel like you're fulfilling today?
Absolutely. So I think one of the big gaps was this intersection of hormonal and mental wellness,
Mm.
that I think a lot of mainstream apps might not fully, acknowledge that or be catered towards that. So that's why I started with just picking one underserved condition, which I felt like after doing research and then also talking to a bunch of people who have been through it. So we are really focused right now on that hormonal mental health area, starting with PMS and PMDD, and kind of also going a step beyond just tracking with like making it as personalized as possible with both an AI assistant and companion aspect that can offer both, more personalized support and conversational, emotional support, as well as building a really evidence-based journey for users. So we have like a PMS, PMDD journey, and are going to test that so we can go ahead more in a digital therapeutic direction. And alongside this, we are already also receiving a lot of interest in adjacent areas. So, for example, infertility and like that whole fertility journey, trying to conceive, that comes with a lot of emotional and mental challenges as well. And those that burden, unfortunately, very heavily some falls on the women, even though it is a journey that a couple takes together. And perimenopause is one of those areas where we're seeing, people are like women, even though they weren't in that, even if they're older, for example, and we weren't really, starting or even positioned in that way, but they are getting a lot of benefit from Heal Cycle as well. So I think a lot of the unique features that we designed to cater to these needs that were underserved are really like helping people track symptoms and learn personalized, insights, as well as like use the AI assistant to get accurate answers and the support that they need, which is not, it's much more accessible than directly having to go to a doctor. Not that we're replacing that, but it's just like a tool for supplementing direct medical care. And I think with the current technological advances, we do have a lot of things in which, if used correctly and with the guardrails that we've put in place, AI can actually be a great empathetic resource for women.
It's phenomenal. You mentioned several different points that I kind of want to touch on in that and just that answer. And it's, first of
Mhm.
all, you clearly can help and support women throughout their journey in life, like at all ages, whether you're in college, whether you're in your mid-30s or older, this application can really support people on each part of that journey. And I was just kind of thinking back to when I've, taken that step forward and started using an app for my cycle management. And it's typically been at the point where I have two children, two daughters that are now 5 and 7. And I have used them when I'm like in the process of being pregnant and tracking that
Mm,
whole transition and seeing the weekly updates and how big's the baby at this point and that kind of thing. And that's typically when I've used them in the past. And then most recently I decided to get more connected with my own body, and that was coming off birth control and being able to manage that through an app and actually
mhm,
understand myself more and just be completely natural. And I think that has actually been quite interesting because I think birth control can mask a lot of the cycle and the emotions that you go through. So now I feel like
mhm,
more than ever, an app that manages the cycle and helps you understand what you're going through emotionally as well. As you mentioned, this it's bringing the body and the mind together and helping increase, you know, being more relaxed, more understanding, to more empathetic, doing the things that your body needs in each part of the cycle to support you on
mhm,
that journey. And I feel like having come off birth control, I need something like this more than ever because I'm actually noticing each part of the cycle and how my mood shifts and changes. So it's
mhm,
just, from my own point of view, I can see how incredibly valuable this is, and how it can really help people. So that's it's really inspiring what you've created. And also we need to talk about the AI component of this. Obviously coming from the tech background, I'm extremely interested in how technology is really helping women take better care of what they're going through. And it sounds like you have like a AI agent within the application. I'm curious, like, how does that work and what does that look like?
mhm. So it is actually going to evolve, maybe even by the time this episode comes out. But essentially, what we're doing is making it not just a chat companion, but also kind of giving a really, warm and welcoming feeling. So our the companion is actually a mood jellyfish. And the like it kind of changes the way it like the expressions and then the how it looks and everything changes, reflecting where you are in your cycle and kind of being a little more not just like super serious and clinical, which is something that we realize like it just should be a warm and welcoming space. And also it is basically co-created in collaboration with both input from psychiatrists, psychologists, as well as gynecologists to make sure that the kinds of responses that we are giving are accurate, are trustworthy, and we're able to kind of direct people in the right way and motivate them in case this is something that we are working on also adding different types of like voices. So if someone wants something that is more encouraging and motivating, kind of coaching you to achieve certain goals versus someone who just wants like a more comforting companion. So being able to curate that sort of voice for yourself is also something that is important. So that's another thing that we have can, but already like we have these amazing features where you're able to have conversations and chats, and we're working on making it much more multimodal and embodied with our like a jellyfish, which is called Tara.
That's really cool. I love that. Yeah, it just definitely sounds very user friendly and a real personalized experience as well, depending on what your goals are, and everyone's so different and what they're trying to achieve.
Mhm,
So I think that's amazing. For the people on the call, a lot of us might know this already, but there are some knowledge gaps that even I find I have today. Um,
mhm.
I'm curious, kind of like just at a high level, are you able to walk us through like those four phases of the menstrual cycle and how, obviously if we're going to start using the app today, like how that can help us with one of each of the stages?
Absolutely. So the cycle actually is split into four phases, or technically there are two main ones. There is follicular and then there is luteal. And day one of your cycle starts with day one of your period, which can range from 5 to 7 days. That's the typical, but it can be shorter or longer than that. So this is also something to keep in mind that medically, or when you speak and look at all of these like textbooks, especially slightly older ones or even current ones, the typical cycle is like 28 days. But that is very unusual. I would say that every woman falls into that exact like 28-day rhythm.
Yeah.
So it is okay for it to fluctuate a little bit. And a lot of women, especially those that might have like PCOS or in certain phases, like nearing perimenopause or menopause, like those cycle days can also become quite irregular. And so, something we have also tried on the app is trying to accommodate those different lengths. So, you're not really restricted in your view, or like when you're seeing those trends, like even if you have a longer cycle, you can see all of that in one view. Um, and so when it comes to the menstrual phase, I think that's the one we are most familiar with. That's the first like 5 to 7 days, and that's when the bleed happens. Then this is part of the follicular phase. So it's the first part of the follicular phase, but the follicular phase continues beyond that. And this is when energy levels are typically higher or rising. And if we might go into this a bit deeper later on, but this is the time when you might feel like if you're working out or you can lift heavier, for example, or women are able to be more productive. But it varies from each individual. So there's no hard and fast generalizations, but that's the general trend, I would say. Um, Ovulation is like the 24-hour event when the egg is released. And this is again a time of like high moods and positive energy, and also like the high fertile period and everything. So a lot of the fertility tracking and high fertile days are tied to your ovulation phase. Next is the part where a lot of the mood related symptoms happen. So that's the luteal phase. And this is when estrogen and progesterone levels actually rise and then drop. So the drop in the late luteal phase is what causes, and it is more sensitive for some women and less so for others, but this is what causes mood related symptoms, PMS, and PMDD in the most severe cases. So PMDD, just to clarify, is actually not linked to a hormonal imbalance according to the current research. So it's more of a brain chemical sensitivity to these like normal fluctuations that are happening. So it's not like there's anything imbalanced per se, but it's just like you're more sensitive to that natural drop in your hormones. So that's kind of like the overview of what the different cycle phases look like. And this also kind of is why some women feel like less active, or you might feel a bit more lethargic in the late luteal phase. You might crave more rest in the early days of your period. And I like to explain this by also reminding people that men run on a 24-hour cycle and our bodies are on a 28 or 35, 28 to 35, or however whatever your cycle duration is.
Yeah.
That is our hormonal cycle. So we have to keep that in mind when we're thinking about living with that rhythm.
God, it's just it's so interesting from my own experience when you mentioned that there's like, you go through the ovulation phase and then there could be that sudden drop. And I think that
Mhm.
is honestly in my own cycle since stepping away from hormonal birth control is just noticing that more than anything
Mm,
throughout the cycle is that sudden drop where it's just boom, like your mood
mm,
instantly changes. And I think if you're not really aware of that, then you can look externally to thinking something else is wrong, or, it can have a ripple
mhm,
effect on your life and think, you might wake up at that same day and be like, oh, do I not like my job? Or is this person, am I not interacting with this person? Okay. But there's a lot going on internally. And I think the better we can understand that and track those days and that part of our cycle and start seeing these patterns, the better it can really help us be successful and not let it kind of impact any other wave of our life with those changes. I'm curious, like
Mhm.
within this space, are there any like myths or misconceptions that you hear that is worth for us and to hear about today?
Mhm. Yeah, I think there definitely are so many that I don't know where I would start, but um, I guess one or two of them that I especially want to dispel are the a lot of women, even if they have really severe PMS, such that it can qualify as for like the clinical diagnostic criteria as PMDD, are still told that, oh, it's like you're just PMSing, or like it's every woman deals with this. But actually, there is quite a range. And so we should keep in mind that for some, it's probably mild enough or not even noticeable, and that's totally fine. And for others, it can be extreme enough that it's like not just PMS, but a dysphoric disorder, which like technically counts as it's a cyclical depressive condition. And even like the medical establishment in a lot of countries is not up to date with like the terminology. I would say I've spoken to women from many different countries, including like the US and India. And this is quite common where a lot of them end up self-diagnosing or having to see multiple doctors before they find one who is able to like acknowledge or diagnose them or take them seriously when they talk about PMDD. Another one is a different kind of misconception or myth that a lot of women who have severe cramps have, that if you've always dealt with that pain, again, that can be dismissed as, everyone has cramps, or everyone, like periods are painful for everyone. Again, I think here there is also a spectrum where just today, for example, I was having a conversation with a woman who has dysmenorrhea, and her pain is so extreme that the only solution is probably to take like injections,
Mm.
or she has tried a variety of different tools. But even then, it was probably at her eighth doctor visit where it was taken more seriously, and not just as, okay, periods are painful. So even cases with like endometriosis go unnoticed for this reason.
Yeah.
Um, because the deeper cause or the root cause might just like not be examined. So I think these are two big things where um, mood related symptoms associated with periods and that PMS phase, as well as like really painful periods, are not necessarily like, if it's mild, then it's like okay, and if you feel like it's manageable. But if a lot of women don't realize how to compare or quantify what they're going through in comparison to others. And I think maybe tracking tools or just even more awareness, like this conversation about that, can hopefully bring a difference in that respect.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think, historically when we um as you mentioned, like people can brush things under the carpet and go, oh, it's just typical
Mm-hmm.
pain, but there can be an underlying issue there that could be something much bigger. And it's really hard. It's harder here when someone's gone through 8 different doctor's appointments to get to the point
Mm-hmm.
of getting noticed and understood properly and examined properly, when we can't really be bucketed in the same situation. Oh, that's just a common pain or a problem.
Mm-hmm.
some
Exactly.
some things are a deeper issue that need to be looked into. And for anyone who's
Mm-hmm.
listening as well, is if you are having a reoccurring issue, definitely go to your doctors and make sure that you're getting that examination, and really push forward to get taken further if you feel that it's needed. That's really important. So kind of bringing it into anyone who's listening, why do you think that cycle awareness is really powerful for high performing, like career driven women? Like, what are some of the benefits that you could potentially gain?
I think treating our cycle, as we discussed, like we run on a different rhythm. Our bodies run on a different rhythm than men. And if we um, are able to acknowledge and sort of live and structure some of our routine um, alongside that, it can benefit both our personal well-being and also productivity in general, like, our ability to thrive in both work and home. Um, and I think treating the cycle as a sort of like blueprint sometimes can be useful. So I wouldn't say like, I don't, again, like I'm careful about not being too prescriptive where certain time, like I think the human body is really beautiful and powerful and we can power through a lot of things, but it also helps to like take rest when we feel like we our body needs more nourishment, like we need more nutritional we our nutritional requirements are different in say like the luteal phase, in the menstrual phase. If for the at least like the first 1 or 2 days, if you're able to know through a tracking app like Healcycle or any others where are that these are going to be those days, and kind of allow ourselves to have a lighter schedule and maybe um, more big team meetings and socialization and all of that around our peak energy times, like the follicular phase and ovulation. So all of these rhythms and maybe living in sync with that can definitely help us feel more productive, feel more active. And I think another important thing that I kind of also mentioned earlier on is working out. So a lot of active women also realize this. A lot of athletes also realize this, that when it comes to their training, it helps to tailor it or kind of understand that the reason why you're not able to maybe push just as hard on certain days is because of your menstrual cycle. And all of these things kind of play a role in how we feel mentally, how energetic we feel. So I would definitely think taking our cycle into account and living with its rhythm can be a powerful tool for us.
Yeah, kind of like focusing on how do we schedule our time
Mhm.
and how we take on every week. I think I always advise people to go onto their calendars every Sunday and look at the week ahead and plan
Yeah,
efficiently. But what if you do that 2 weeks in advance and you align your cycle with that planning and really optimize based on where you are in that cycle and know, okay, I know that I'm going to be entering this phase of my cycle. This is a time where I want my calendar to be a little bit lighter and to have boundaries in
exactly.
place where you can have that open time and not overcommit yourself
Hmm.
to prevent burnout as well. And I think a lot of people within this community and within the corporate industry are experiencing a lot of burnout. And any way that we can optimize our schedule, and especially aligning with having this as a tracker and aligning it to our schedule and what's to come in the next month or so, is going to better
Hmm.
help us with our time management and be able to give ourselves what we need in advance
Yes.
before it even comes around.
Hmm.
Because I think that's almost the problem is like we get to that day and we're looking at our calendar and it's like overloaded with things. So how can we better, focus our attention on being more organized and also optimizing to our body? This is a great way to do that. So
Hmm.
just digesting that, I think that's so important and really really interesting to also help us optimize our schedule and our time efficiently. Um,
And actually, this reminds me of another thing. Like, so in the university talk that I gave, where we first learned of each other, I was also speaking about stress. So when you talk about burnout, stress and higher cortisol levels, so interfere with all these other hormones that are controlling our reproductive cycle that we just talked about. So the cortisol being higher will kind of mess up the rhythms of like estrogen and progesterone, and that's why a lot of high stress times you will find like women missing their cycles or they become irregular and so on. So I think just keeping that in mind, that our stress levels are also something that will impact our bodies. So if we can schedule things as per, we need a bit more rest on certain days and then can be like more productive on others and have like more meetings on other days, that can help manage some of those like stress levels, as well as this is also why actually we have a lot of like mindfulness tools and meditations and so on Healcycle. So usually, like it's not just things that should be on a meditation app, but I think they're definitely a part of taking back control over both the mind and body aspects of our cycle.
Oh, I love that. I think I recently did a course on the art of saying no, and it's actually a really hard thing to do. And it's like I think that
Yes.
journey and building that mental muscle to protect your time can be really
Hmm.
challenging for a lot of people. And I think the more we understand ourselves and like tracking our cycle and understanding, hey, this is what I need, the easier it is to kind of put yourself first and say no. Where before we
Hmm.
might have been inclined to say yes and overextend ourselves, but the more we kind of understand what we're going through individually and what's to come, it kind of helps us have that tool of saying no and saying, this is not going to be fitting for where I'm going to be that week, or allows us to have that voice of reason of keeping things optional and not
Hmm.
overcommitting, which is really important for managing that time better. So, yeah, I really love that point that you just made, as well as the impact stress can have on the body. A lot of people are trying to understand, you know why didn't I have my period this month, or why is my cycle
Yeah.
delayed. And when college students are going through exam period, or you're
Yes.
in a corporate job and you're presenting to a huge client that week, that can all have
Mhm.
a greater impact on your cycle, which I don't think a lot of us realize, but it can have a huge impact. Like stress on its own can cause all kinds of different things within the body to happen. So as we kind of round up the conversation, I'm curious, where do you see the future of hormone or health heading? Kind of, is there any particular trends, or what are you seeing people are currently doing or going to start doing in the future?
Yeah, I think a really interesting research direction that I've seen come up is something like you have CGMs, or continuous glucose monitoring. So there are some research labs, like one at Caltech, where they're working on continuous hormone monitoring. So right now we have point in time tests, either like blood tests, which are the most common kind, or some at home testing options, which are through urine or saliva. But I think if we for the like cases where, especially when you're trying to conceive, or you're trying to navigate menopause, maybe I think those are the time periods. Even someone with PCOS, for example, might be able to see some trends and patterns emerge if we are able to track our hormone levels, because we kind of know what the typical rise and fall looks like, and have those, diagrams that you can look up online and so on. But what our individual patterns are is not something we can track very easily. You can still, like, even if you do continuous tests, those are like the snapshot for that particular day. So I think that is interesting. And we are still like, I think, a few years out from maybe having this actually available. But it does seem like there is more effort and research happening in women's health, and there are more demands from women themselves. And I think that is something which I'm really happy about, that we are asking for better solutions for ourselves. Like, we shouldn't have to, but I think that awareness coming from within women, and the ask for better solutions is very is hopefully going to bring a transformation. Some other things are in like other areas as well, like more AI-based solutions, for example. Ours is headed in that direction. And then possibly also like other kinds of wearables. But I'm kind of like, I see mixed opinions on wearables, with some people really appreciating the additional data and everything, and others kind of feeling like, okay, maybe it's like too much information, or like you would want to sort of naturally understand or learn your body without seeing a lot of those numbers, which can um, be more prescriptive, like telling you how you feel versus being more in touch with it. So I think there are mixed opinions about wearables, but in general, the tech-based solutions are advancing, and the biology is also like we're able to or there is a push at least to understand some of these like mechanisms. For example, we don't know the cause of endometriosis until very recently. We are also like not maybe even now fully definitive on what causes PMDD, and it might be like a couple of different things. So I think more research into these conditions is what's needed, and it is happening. So I'm optimistic about it.
All right, that's yeah, that's great. And I think you like you mentioned as well, like there are wearable technology now for glucose
Mhm.
monitoring, and that typically before was prescription based, and now it's becoming
Yes.
something that you can actually purchase. And if there was an equivalent that could be also used for hormonal management, that would be
Mhm.
fantastic. And like you hit the nail on the point of you get feedback from people who say that the data is overwhelming and it's too much. I don't need to know this much. But then you also get
Mhm.
users that really love having those insights. I think that the
Yes.
most valuable insight that I see having worked in the data analytics field is how can we turn that data into actionable insight? So
Yes.
okay, I'm in this part of my phase and I'm
Mm.
tracking these symptoms and these moods. What's that recommendation that comes out of that? And I think that's the more
Mm.
pointed and the more personalized that can be is incredibly valuable. So yeah, it's such an exciting area in future for women being able to really manage us and as you mentioned it, like it should be available. We shouldn't be asking for this. But it's very exciting to see how we're growing in this area.
Mhm.
For someone just beginning this journey, where's the best place to start? How can they start, tapping into this? Where can we get your app? We need to know all the details.
Yeah, so I think you can get the app on both iOS and Android, and it's under the name of Healcycle. So that's just one word, Healcycle, no spaces. And we're also on Instagram and TikTok. So those are other platforms. So if you just want to see like more fun content, that's where to check it out. I think another resource is just to get started, if I think definitely the app is a good starting point, and we've tried to keep it like simple and clean interface and not very overwhelming for someone who's just beginning this journey. And it's especially, I would say, tailored to women who are struggling with PMS or PMDD. And another thing that I would say is the blog that we have made is could also be a good place where if you're looking for something more pointed or just want to explore and read at your own time and pace. That is another thing. So that's just on our website at healcycle.com. Um, in terms of just like a basic understanding, I hope that this conversation itself was helpful in getting people up to speed on, what are the different phases and why they feel differently, maybe across uh, their cycle or the months. And I don't think it's necessary to like learn all of this at one time. So maybe just start small and take simple steps.
Mm.
So and it doesn't mean that you have to align every part of your life, from like what you're eating to what you're drinking, and what kind of workouts you're doing, but maybe just identifying like one or two areas where you feel like you yourself need the most support. So if that is on like the workplace side and managing that, or if it's more in terms of the mood related symptoms, or you're someone who's like an athlete and loves to like lift weights or go for runs, and you see different, your capacity is different. So maybe you start there. So I feel like maybe just identifying one or two things that you want to start looking into instead of trying to do it all at once.
Oh, that's really helpful. And this has been an incredible discussion. For anyone who's watching, please comment below if you have any questions, like put them below, and I can always pass them on to Anya and get those answers for you. So thank you for tuning in, but just thank you so much for being part of this discussion. And this conversation has been very educational just for myself and hopefully everyone watching as well. And we'll also put the link in so people can get straight to your app as well and be able to download that and start their journey if that's something they're looking to do as well. But so thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and having this discussion with us.
Thank you so much for having me here. And this was a wonderful conversation. I hope it is, also helpful to everyone who's listening. And this is such a great initiative that you've started. I hope a lot of women tune in and stay in touch.
Thank you so much, Anya.